So welcome, Bob Farrell. Great to have you, man. It's great to get finally revenge after you've been running all the hosting the DDF glucose signals live Q and A's and stopping and harassing me halfway through my presentation. So yeah, it's great to get to know you a little bit more. And yeah, you've
There's
been
almost nothing more fun than interrupting an engineer.
you're sort of an engineer. You're in engineering management for ages, and yeah, you started with us back in 2018. I think you first popped up on my radar when you downloaded all my Tableau charts and started dissecting them and asking questions, and then you just became part of the fabric of our community. So thank you for everything you've done. I just wanted to acknowledge
I I,
what
I
you've done
remember
for us.
once you made a comment a couple of years later about blah blah blah, and I can't have Bob, reverse engineering him. I said, no, too late. Did that early on.
Yeah, you downloaded all my Tableau stuff into a spreadsheet. We go, what about this, man? When we got chatting, and yeah, and then you popped up in data-driven fasting and kicked butt. Really, you'd lost a ton of fat on all our leaderboards. You're like 16% fat loss and 35% glucose reduction, and up the top of the leaderboard for weight loss. So you really earned your stripes for that role as, coming back and helping out with the live Q&As and helping people with really pragmatic advice. So yeah, I think you got your body fat down from 45% to 20% from top to bottom, which is massively impressive.
Yeah, and I think I'm right around 21 at the moment. So
Yeah. So Laurie just popped up and said I'm curious about how Bob first found Marty. But I sort of wanted to get the prelude to that. You were talking about since before I was born, you're into nutrition in some way, and all different sorts of from fruitarian to the to paleo and carnivore and eating lots of liver and a ton of things. So just give us a snapshot of the Bob nutrition journey. It's been a bit of an up and down, and you eventually found us and found your groove, and you're living a healthy retirement, basically.
yeah, thanks. It was so, and I think somebody asked. I think it was one of Belinda's questions that she posted, but she wanted to know what did I do before I came to
Mm.
uh, optimizing nutrition. And I,
Everything,
I
I think,
think
is
it,
the answer.
yeah, well, basically because it goes kind of by decades, right? When you're 18 to 20 something, you can do whatever you want. If you don't kill yourself,
Yep.
whatever you're eating is going to work just fine. And then you move into your 30s, by now you've probably got kids.
Yep.
So nutrition is probably not taking the forefront.
Yep.
So we work our way. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I would say it was maybe 1986-ish that there was an online thing called Donsbach, Donsbach University, and
Right.
you got a nutrition certificate when you finish this course.
Cool.
It was exactly worth nothing. So, but I was at least looking at it. There was 1986. I'd left industry for a while. I had an idea I was going to go into massage therapy. As
Cool.
part of that training, uh, you took nutrition,
Yep.
which was quite interesting, and people who were teaching it. And it was slanted more toward plant, but not anti-meat. But that was helpful then. But it took me about a year to realize I wasn't going to launch that quickly enough to support wife and three kids.
Mm.
So I had a clinic for a while. I had a I was a licensed massage therapist. We had our clinic,
Wow.
and then I went back into industry for the next whatever 14, 15 years. So it's for doing, same kinds of intensity of work, industry paid a lot better.
Yeah. I feel your pain.
So it was so and then I think 2017, I was looking to do more with nutrition, and I ended up going with precision nutrition.
Yep.
They call it PN1 now. And I've kept that active since then. So I'm certified as a nutrition, fitness, health coach. And then I would say, not too long after I had done that, I had to be reading, doing something around nutrition. And I stumbled across optimizing nutrition. And I said, oh, isn't that a cute name?
I'll
So,
check it out.
yeah, I said, let me see what we've got going on here. And then here's one I've never shared this story.
Yeah.
And then when I heard you were a civil engineer, it goes in my base of songs that I like. It's what I like about you is you know how to dance. So
I'm not sure I
knowing
dance
that you,
well.
no, that's just a metaphor. But knowing that you were an actual engineer,
Yep.
I said, oh, this could be an interesting place to hang out. So in industry, starting back in 82, when I had my first manufacturing plant, and at the time I was the youngest plant manager in the company's history, absolutely full of myself. So, but I realized then, based on the size of the plant in dollars, how much revenue we were selling, you got X number of engineers.
Yep.
So kind of like up to 10 million, you got one engineer.
Yep.
Then the biggest I ever had was 140 million, and I had 13 engineers.
There you go.
Now, when you've got 13 engineers and you can point them at something, it's like a heat-seeking missile. I'll say, look, over there, do you see that?
There's a
Go
problem. Solve it
fix
with
that.
numbers.
Yeah, go fix that. Because it's the engineers, they know stuff and they fix things. There you go. So, but by
You're
then I'd
intrigued at
found
what
it.
an engineer might do with nutrition.
Yes, yes. So I said, this is good. This is fun. So I was there when the PDF was an Excel spreadsheet that
Yep.
mostly worked. There was,
Yeah, the app really helped level it up a ton.
yeah. And just after Alex had come in. So enjoyed, you know, few principles and many methods.
Mm.
So I said, yeah, this is going to work fine. He's on to something. Alex is going to straighten out the funky program stuff, and there they go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that worked.
So Laurie's asked, you were, involved with mastering diabetes and Robbie Barbero, and you went through a fruitarian phase, and tell us about the different phases of Bob's nutrition journey and what worked, what didn't, what you learned, what didn't work.
Well,
Um,
part of it is based on age and what's going on. So the younger you are, the more dietary mistakes you can get away with.
mm,
The body recovers very quickly, can do
mm,
more with less. Back in the Robbie era, that was sort of 2001. There was a fellow from California. He went by Elkanon, and we founded a Yahoo called Path of Health.
yep,
And it was whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic, or better fruits and shoots. That was our whole
yep,
tagline thing.
yep,
So almost no meat.
yep,
Back in those days, I could eat 20 pounds of bananas in a week easily. Not a
yep,
problem. I was very, very thin, but not very strong.
yeah.
And, I wasn't quite wispy that I was going to get blown away, but, it was not not what I wanted. And then at some point, Yahoo did away with their groups. So that group went completely away. So,
Yep.
but that was a phase that lasted, I don't know how, 2, 3 years maybe. Uh, that's where I did experiment with extended fasting. Uh, and he's not even talked about anymore, but Dr. H.M. Shelton, The
Hmm.
Art and Science of Fasting,
Yep.
he used to have, I don't know how many clinics across
Yeah.
the United States where the whole way he helped cure people was just fasting,
Yep.
but the government got into it and shut him down. So,
Really? Wow.
oh yeah,
It's dangerous or?
I would say that was the story they told, but it was more. So if you can cure people or help them get better with
Right.
nothing, That doesn't help the pharma at all.
It's threatening to big pharma. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very threatening. So guess what? That went away.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So did you rebound after the fruitarian fasting thing and then find yourself back in work and a bit heavier, or how did that all play out?
Oh, it's gone up and down. It played out. It was not paying much attention to diet,
Mm.
too much alcohol, frankly.
Yep.
Uh, because as we all know in this group, right, alcohol are not free calories.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
what's that number? I think it's 7 calories per
So
gram or something.
yeah, yeah. It's just empty
Yeah.
calories and you just add it on and it gives you nothing in terms of protein or nutrients.
No, and what I didn't understand then was that in the order in which our bodies
Mm.
will burn
Oxidative
fuel,
priority.
yeah, it has to get that first. And the one that was difficult for me to own up to was that it's really a metabolic poison.
Mm.
And being as big a drinker as I was, that was a pretty
It's a
serious self
big
talk.
poison. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some
Yeah.
people can incorporate a little bit of wine and, have a little bit of
Oh no,
joy,
a
but
little
it,
bit,
it
you're
d
okay.
definitely adds up. But if it's you're using it to cope and for comfort and as a major calorie source, you're in trouble because you're displacing all the other nutrients in your diet. So in
So
terms
I
of,
think I
go on.
go ahead. No, you go.
Oh, did you do macros? We'd had a combined masterclass back then that dumped
Oh yeah.
everything in six
Oh
weeks.
yeah. No, no. I did the whatever it was called then. It was the micros and macros combined, the six
Yep.
week class. Oh yeah. No, I did that.
Yeah.
It was uh it was all good till week 6
Yeah.
when you stripped out any supplements. But I think if you went and looked that up, I think I finished up. I don't know if I was in the 90s or not, but I would have been in the high 80s at
Yep.
least. So
Yep.
I think 88 rings a bell, which
Yep.
is for me a really
Yeah.
nice place to hang out.
Yeah, yeah, and you've continued to use Nutrient Optimizer, and you keep on going. This doesn't quite work right. Need to get it sorted, and yeah, so you continue to pay attention to your micronutrients, which is super cool. Has that helped you more than, I suppose, the fruitarian and the other approaches? Just how do you find just focusing on nutrients?
Oh, it's a much healthier uh, approach, more geared toward, I think, getting your health span to try and equal your lifespan. So the other one, I don't know how that would have turned out if I had stayed, on the whole fruitarian thing.
Yeah,
You could get, you'll get a ton of nutrients, amazing amount of nutrients if you're
very little
eating,
protein.
yeah, almost no protein. If you're living in, we lived in Florida at the time, and it's
Mm,
subtropical, but
mm.
terrific, terrific fruits. So
Yeah. Yeah. And Laurie's mentioned to give people a context of the scoring system, and in the Micros Masterclass we use a scoring system that encouraged competition for people to improve their diet quality score. So 80 is great, 90 is amazing, and living at 100 is really hard, and few people like Miley continue to smash it, but it takes a bit of effort. Yields great results, but for people like you, Bob, who are a bit more active and getting out there and moving a fair bit, you don't need to be at 90 or 100 all the time. So, what did you learn from glucose signals, data-driven fasting back then? You really nailed it. You obviously put your mind to it and went, "This is going to be really powerful to shed the fat."
yeah, it was a concept that I was not familiar with until I read how you guys had presented it, right?
Yep.
And I said, "Well, isn't that interesting? Let's see how this works." And I think you could see in that one. I think I went in that challenge. I went from 110 to 71.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
on that whole leaderboard at that time, I had the lowest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I won't say it's hard. It wasn't. That hard's the wrong word. It required some discipline,
Mm.
right? And it was the primary thing. Once I got used to it, was remembering to test. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. No, 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 you're not. You're going to test first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that obviously
It's a
worked
great
really well
tool.
for you to lose fat. And you've really what you do really well in the classes, every class you turn up and help guide people through and I give them all the detail and you go, now here's the simple reality. What are the tips that you've learnt from your experience and watching thousands of other people go through the process that you think are important to know?
So, one of the first ones, I think it's a very unappreciated feature that all of your programs include, and it's what I call getting the context right.
Mm,
And what you do at the beginning, without any fanfare, don't talk about it. You just say, okay, for the first X number of days, make it 3 days for glucose signals or a week for the other two.
yep.
We're going to establish your baseline. That
Yeah.
to me is just brilliant in its
Yeah.
simplicity because you've knocked out all the nonsense about where are people. It doesn't matter what they think. Now
Yeah.
we actually have the data and we can see exactly where you are and what you're doing. Good,
Yeah.
good. Now we can assist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once
And
we know where you are,
that's the crazy thing. Everybody wants to know what their macros should be or what their blood sugar should be. And it's like, it doesn't matter what some online calculator says your macros should be or some crazy, glucose goddess or whatever says your glucose should be. It's what is it now? And if you can move it a little bit towards optimal, you're doing great. If you're at 200 and somebody says you should be at 80, what do you do? It's like crazy. You can't get from
yeah,
the
that's
glucose
not
of 200
helpful.
to 80. It's just, I'm a failure. That's all you know. You're a failure. You can't get to 80. So
But you can probably get to 198.
yeah, really quickly. And once you get to 198, you go, oh, I'm on a roll here. I'm going to keep on rocking down.
Right.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
so I consider that. The other thing that you've done an extraordinary job of over the years is taking your engineering talents and summarize them both into wonderful getting started guides.
mm,
So if people are new, I try and encourage them. I used to go tell them, look for the green check boxes and blah, 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 blah. But it's right there. So it's the getting started guide, and I'm sure Marty's heard it. It's HNR, right? Handbook not read. So,
welcome to my
so
pain. I wrote the whole data-driven fasting manual to try and summarize all the things, all the questions that people had asked. But some people love reading all that detail, but most people just want to experiment, and we guide
but
them through that process.
then the next thing I would say, if we can help get everybody to calm down a little bit and relax, you're going to get a lesson every day. If you
Mm,
would please just read that and, if you can, do that.
mm. Yeah, we've got a few questions coming in the chat. We'll sort of go through the rapid fire at the end. So,
Okay.
what are the major features of glucose signals do you think people miss if you just wanted to dumb it down to the simplicity, which you do really well?
So I think many people miss the getting started guide.
Yep.
So I encourage, it's kind of right over here. Look left, you'll find it. Good getting started guide. Uh, the other one is, and I understand that lots of people show up with way too much body weight and want to do something about it immediately,
Yeah.
but it's that pressure putting it on ourselves is going to, it's not going to help us. It's
Yeah.
counterproductive. So we
Totally.
want to relax. Just relax, please. Okay, now we're at day one. What are you going to do? Nothing. Eat, and just before you eat, please check your blood glucose and record
Yep.
it. Perfect. Can you do
Yep.
that again? Good. Now, can you do that tomorrow? All right, you're
Three
almost
days in a
there.
row.
Can you do it a third day? Oh, wait till you see. Now, here we go. The
Yeah.
magic's about to start.
That was easy. And yeah,
Well,
and it's getting them to baseline and understand where they're at. Like you keep saying, is really important. Where are you at now? And then we can move you forward in progressive overload. And that anxiety of the diet mentality of I'm in a diet challenge, I'm going to lose a ton of weight. I'm putting pressure on myself, I've got anxiety, that it always derails people again and again.
Right. And I think a lot of people in the beginning have trouble both understanding and appreciating that something this simple could actually work.
Yeah. And Amanda
And it
said
can, it
the
does.
anxiety about testing blood glucose blows me away. Yeah, people are afraid of testing with their glucometer, but once they do it a few times, they realize it's actually quite painless. And once they do it a few more times, they get a bit addicted to it and want to know all the data all the time. You go, no, 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 you don't need to know everything all the time. It's just test before each meal, and then on day 10, we say skip testing for breakfast and get a protein focused meal, get your nutrients and protein, get your body calmed down, and then you can just use your glucose to guide your other meals during the day. So, yeah.
Yep.
Amanda said it's just getting through that first few pricks, and then yeah, then we have to calm people down, which is super cool. So day 10, your favorite, why is that important? You just love that.
I
Every
find it
class you just jump up and down about day 10.
I find it to be a very useful pattern break. And for people that are looking to exercise, it
Mm,
gets rid of all of that stuff, that noise around my blood glucose is jumping around when I exercise. Okay, great. Let's not do that right now because if
mm,
you're exercising, that's another good thing to do. Ease up on that blood glucose for a minute,
yeah,
get your exercise in, have some more fuel, replenishment,
get a good
protein,
meal.
carbs, whatever you need. Now, now check your blood glucose again when you
Yeah,
think you're hungry. And I think it just sets people up for success.
yeah, yeah. Amanda said I'm with Bob. Day 10 was the game changer for me, as I could eat protein without testing and only worry about dinner. So yeah, if you're eating 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day, you're only testing for those other meals to guide how much and what you eat. And it's so powerful to use your current glucose number to guide not just when you eat, but how much you eat and what you eat. And that's been really cool to see so many people use that. Yeah. Judy Ann said, why do we need to test the same meal each day for the main meal? Yeah, it's good to get one main meal at a similar time each day. For most people, that's the morning meal, the first meal that they just eat. Often when the glucose is a little bit higher due to dawn phenomenon. Other people that might be dinner. But if you can lock in one meal a day, it just helps set the circadian rhythm around that meal. Do you have any further comment on that, Bob?
Yeah, and I know Belinda and I differ a little bit. You can do it on different meals. It's just really hard. It's just really hard
Yeah,
because then all of a sudden you're going to find yourself, huh? Oh, look, I already used my main meal today, and now I'm going to use it again. No, no, you're not. That's not going to
yeah,
work at all.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's called an all day long buffet.
Yeah. Um, so you're big on exercise, and I love that. And I love that you bring that to the community. And you shared in the chat your possible discussion point on, here I am at a BMI that is technically above the obese category, but a fat-free mass index that's amazing, especially for your age, and a fat mass index that is also amazing. And I dropped it on the chart
Thank
for
you.
people. We've talked about this before in previous challenges and looked at Mike's and a bunch of other people, and this division, rather than just looking at the body mass index, looking at the fat mass index and the fat-free mass index helps us to understand whether we need to lose fat. And Bob is at a really sweet place. And in terms of fat-free mass index, Bob is right up there as well. So you've got tons of muscle and a healthy amount of fat, although the number on the scale might be a bit higher than the doctor might want to see based on the BMI measurement. I suppose, why is that important to you rather than, yeah, tell us why being lean and strong is important.
So I've moved more toward that way obviously after all the fruitarian stuff. And even more recently, I went to look it up. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago now. So
Yeah.
that would make it in my late 60s. I was learning about super slow
Mm.
and that whole movement on muscle fatigue and all that. And I drove about an hour and a half north and went to a guy who for I forget what he charged me, 25 or $35. And I spent, I think, almost 2.5 hours with this guy. And
Yeah.
he showed me how to do this correctly. And
Yep.
he was the, certified sports conditioning specialist. And he said, now, all that stuff that I learned in school, that's not what we're using here, but I had to do that to get this certificate. I said, I
Yeah.
understand. And then he showed me uh, how you actually very slowly take your muscles to fatigue.
Mm.
And so that whole program was very helpful to me. And one of the ones I really like about it is it's for strength. It's not for hypertrophy. So I'm not
Mm.
trying to grow big muscles, but I want to be strong. And in order to do that, it's a combination of time and intensity. And so for five um, basic compound exercises. So it's leg press, chest press,
Mm.
lat pull down, overhead press, and horizontal row.
Yep.
So for each of those, I'm going to do um, as much as the target is to fatigue my muscles so that I cannot do another rep. I cannot do it within 30 to 60 seconds.
Yep.
So it's constant tension for 30 to 60 seconds. And doing that, I've been able to get significantly stronger.
Yeah. And
Now, there's
you're still
as
doing
it,
that regularly, or you seem to be doing
oh, yeah.
tennis and pickleball and everything else, which is
Oh, no,
amazing. With a
that's one of my pillars. That's a foundation. It's a
yep.
base. It's a standard, pick whatever name you like. Uh, if I'm only getting weights in once a week, it'll be what I described to you there. In the last year or so, I've added another one that's for force, where I'm not taking them to failure, but I'm doing a whole bunch of reps very quickly on the concentric side and almost letting it almost fall. I can't in the gym make a bunch of noise,
Yep.
but in doing those once a week. And if I can get both of those in a week, I've had a great week for weightlifting.
And you're completely fatigued and your muscles are burning and you're recovering for the rest of the week.
Oh, yeah. And that's one I remember I think it was Doug McGuff,
Yep.
who does a great job on explaining all this too. And I enjoy him. He's an emergency room physician. And he's a big proponent of this and he's got lots of videos and all that. But he was the one that said, if you've done it correctly, he said, you don't have to worry about doing it a second time that week. You won't be able to,
Yeah. So just
which,
to, sorry, go on.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, explain the concentric. You're pushing really quickly and then dropping the weight and pushing really quickly and dropping the
Yeah.
weight on one of
So,
your workouts.
so concentric is the one where we've got the muscle under contraction, whether it's, the chest press and you're pushing out, or if it's a lat pull down. And the other way is the eccentric, that it's you're lengthening the muscle.
Mm.
Now, I know that the eccentric can also grow. I do that when I'm doing the to failure. Now, and most people don't believe it when I tell them, but I can do the five compound exercises all to failure, and I'm done in less than 15 minutes. Could be
Yeah,
12,
wow.
but I'm exhausted.
It's really intense
Every
stuff.
muscle, almost every muscle, every major muscle in my body hurts.
Yeah. I've tried the super slow stuff and it's really just it's pushing back on you while you're moving it very, very slowly and it's very, very
Right,
intense. Harder than it
right,
sounds.
right. So
Tom,
well, and most people, when they say they've gone to failure, as I listened to Lane Norton recently, he said, they're not even close. They're not close. If you held a gun to their head, they could probably get three more.
Tom said, so a workout is 5 exercises for up to a minute each. Is that considered a complete workout? I suppose the answer is if you're completely fatigued at the end of it because it was so intense, that's going to do the job.
That's a complete workout for resistance training,
Mm,
for strength.
yeah,
That does almost nothing for cardio.
yeah.
It's working on the heart's going a different thing.
And then you're out there playing pickleball and tennis as much as you possibly can. You must be a different animal in terms of fitness for people around you at the same age.
So, yes, well, the group that I play tennis with or pickleball with, many of them are my age. There's
Mm.
one guy, he's my sort of little hero. He's 85 and plays a hell of
Wow.
a nice tennis game. So he's fun to be around.
Wow.
But I'll
Wow.
tell you
What
a
an
quick story. So,
inspiration.
yeah, I played this morning. I'm coming out, and it wasn't, I played for an hour and a half or something. And I sat around for half an hour screwing off. And I come out and I go to get in my car. And all of a sudden, I hear a guy talking to me. I don't even know where he is. It turns out he's sitting in the car next to me. And I hear
Hmm.
him going, "You're a warrior." I said, "No, I'm just worn out." He said, "No, you're a warrior. I've watched you guys playing." I said, "Okay, thanks." And he goes, "I had a heart attack when I was 42."
Wow.
He goes, "I can't do that anymore." He said, "But I'm still alive. I'm 64." I told him, I said, "I'm sorry to hear that." I said, "Yeah, I'm just slightly older than you are. I'm 74." He said, "Good for you." So, yeah.
So what's your motivation at 74 to keep on pushing? Most people are just sort of going, oh, I'm going to chill and wind down and like you're up there, you're out there, you're playing, you're lifting, you're eating as well as you can and feeling intentionally at 74. Why? Why do you care? And
So,
you're helping everybody
I,
in the community too, which is amazing. So you're giving back.
well, that's every day, and I don't succeed every day. Every day, I would like to help at least one person in the community. So
Thank you.
it's a rare day that you won't see me post something somewhere, right? To
Yep.
try and answer somebody's question or, but the other one, I put it in, and it sounds a little woohoo, I know, but I call it living intentionally.
Mm.
Now, I would like to be healthy enough that I can see my great grandchildren. So, and one of the metrics that I like to use, and I learned it from Peter Attia,
Mm.
is that I like to compare myself in whatever health and fitness metric we're looking at. I like to compare myself to people 20 years younger.
Yep.
And in that age group, what are they doing? What's considered good
Mm.
for that age group? And if I can meet that in my simplistic mind, I said, I think I've probably bought myself 20 years.
Wow. Of healthy life,
Yeah.
not just
Well,
decrepit.
yeah. And I had, there's some other things obviously that influenced it. I forget how old my mother was when she died, but she spent the last, pick a number, 10 years,
Mm.
and she was on 18 different drugs.
Mm.
And it was just so sad.
Mm.
What a way to spend the end of your life. Dear
Mm.
God.
Mm.
I would go to visit her, and she had to be in a wheelchair, and she would ask me to break her out. I said, "What do you mean, Mom?" She goes, "I want you to break me out. Take me over to the elevator." I said, "Okay, I don't think this is going to work,
Jailbreak mum.
but we'll go over to the elevator, Mom. I don't think it's going." And as soon as we got there, the wheelchair locks. Not allowed. She can't go out without. So, and then my dad he died. I think he died when he was 79, but he
Wow.
had he was developing Alzheimer's. And I remember I didn't realize at the time what Alzheimer's really did to people. He
Mm.
wanted to go out and go to the grocery store when I said, "Great." So we went to the grocery store, and I turn around and he's gone. "This is not good. I've lost my
I
dad."
lost dad at the shops.
And he said, "Oh, I just wanted to go over here." I said, "Dad, you got to say something."
You gotta let me know.
So he went fairly quickly. I don't know exactly what happened, but he fell in his sort of den living room and he whacked his head on the corner of a table and he was dead within 4 days.
Oh, yeah, the falls
So
as people when people
neither
age is diabolical,
yeah,
isn't it?
neither one of those would I like to emulate.
Mm,
Now, my mom, God love her, she had 6 kids, all cesarean, didn't have a lot of money growing up, but she did literally nothing, nothing for in terms of anything resembling movement,
mm.
exercise, uh, big drinker, smoker.
Yep,
So,
yep.
no.
You're trying to be the opposite so you can live a longer, healthy, happier life. I love how Tia talks about the centenarian decathlon, and you look at 40 and say, well, what do I want to do when I'm 90? Do I want to be able to pick up my grandchild? Do I want to be able to walk? And you think, well, my strength is going to go down at around 1% per year from
Right?
20 or 30. You sort of just have to work back from there and say, I'm going to be strong enough so if I lose strength, I can still do these things when I'm 80, 90
Yeah. So
and be independent.
they had a apparently a pretty good measure or metric to figure out how you're doing is your hand grip strength.
Mm,
They said you can't actually train it. That's not going to help it. Uh, but so I actually bought one of those little whatever they're called gynometers or whatever the name is, right, to check
yeah,
it. Um, Off the charts for my age group.
yeah, yeah.
So, which I
And,
said, yeah, we're doing fine there.
and if you look at
So,
your fat-free mass index, which is how much lean mass and muscle you have, you're doing fantastically. Most people get into that sarcopenic phase, and that's what diabetes is. We've got not enough muscle and too much fat, and the energy just builds up in our system, and we can't burn off the energy that we eat. So you're kicking it, which is
yeah, and
great.
as
Great
we
example.
yeah, thanks. As we add some muscle, and I don't know if it's physiologically correct or not, but I look at muscle as being a terrific glucose sink.
Mm,
So
mm,
once I've done something and used up the glucose that was stored in that muscle and can only be used for that muscle,
yeah,
once I've used some of that up, it's very happy to take
yeah,
some more blood glucose, take some
yeah,
more glucose and replace it.
and have the carbs. That's a
Yeah.
good segue to Christine's question. Christine is an amazing woman who's done at 71 done a marathon on every continent on Earth, I believe. She's set the Guinness World Records in a number of categories, but she's asking about fueling for running and lifting heavy. She's somewhat concerned about insulin resistance and tracks her glucose with a CGM. How do you advise? Like a lot of people come to us from a low carb keto background, trying to limit carbs. We're talking to Mike Fitzpatrick earlier, before we kicked off. He's a type 1 who's lifting heavy and actually needs some carbs to fuel that. How do you guide people between I'm inactive, I need to reduce carbs, or now I'm active, I've got muscle and I need carbs? How do you like that's a real passion topic of yours. Tell us about that.
So, and I think Belinda had a similar question too, and some of the ones that she submitted ahead of time.
Mm,
So so most, and I saw it, and I have to be careful how I say this, but most people say they're running and they're not.
mm,
So the definition from all the, sports medicine people and all that, running is faster than 6 minutes a mile. So I would say what most people are doing that we call running is actually jogging, which is
mm.
fine. And those two are kind of different. But so I'm going to assume that it's really jogging. Uh, and when my wife was running her 17 marathons, I was able to
Wow.
see the difference. And when you could look at some of those front runners coming through, well, first, if they were allowed, the Kenyans would win every marathon race every because if the Kenyans win that race, they can support their whole extended family for the year.
Very
So
motivated.
yeah, they're not fooling around. They're
Got
they're going to
a
be out
job to
there
do.
just but those people look like if there was a stronger breeze, they'd be going the wrong way.
It's all
So, but
over.
they're absolutely flying, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like watching a horse race. When people are actually running, you'll see times when there are no feet on the ground; they're just flying. So, but
Mm,
anyhow, given that, so if we're looking for jogging, cardio, etc., the goal is sustained energy, endurance, and hydration. So there's some things we can do. And if she's run that many, she's got this fueling down for the running part. It's
mm.
but we
The
want
lifting.
30 to 60 minutes ahead of time. You want some light, easily digestible carbs. Have a banana. You know,
Mm.
a lot of people in our community I know are freaked out about bananas. No, no, no. Not if you're going to go run a marathon.
Yeah.
Have a banana. You'll be just fine. And then, or some oatmeal, whatever, maybe a little protein. So we're skewing it there more toward carbs.
Yeah.
We're going to need, because the body's going to be using them up. Okay. Afterwards, we want to replenish the glycogen, which we just talked about, the whole muscle, sucking it up. And we want to repair. There, we want a mix of carbs and protein. We
Mm.
want to get everything back. A chocolate milk would be great, protein, smoothies, have some rice with chicken. I remember also somebody said something about rice, and also said rice is rocket fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Well,
to fuel activity is basically the opposite of what you want to do if you're sedentary and need to lose weight. If you're
right.
trying to dial up satiety and nutrient density because you want to lose weight, you're not that active. It's the opposite to a need to fuel. And either you just have to understand where you are on the spectrum and what your goals are.
Okay. And on the other side, for the weightlifting, it's a little bit different. We're going to want to work on muscle repair and then growth, strength, energy for short bursts.
Mm,
So the intensity will be higher, the duration will be lower. So 30 to 90 minutes ahead of time, have a balanced meal, you'll be fine.
yeah.
And then, Greek yogurt, berries, granola. Afterwards, then we want to prioritize protein,
Mm,
repair the muscle that we've damaged, and get some carbs to replenish it. So hydration is still important, but not as sweat heavy as jogging usually.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Do you think
jogging
generally?
leans more on carbs for energy, lifting prioritize protein, and we're always using, as we know, some of both.
Mm, yeah. I think most people can get away with just having their normal meals around their normal workouts because they're not doing a marathon, they're not doing a personal best on that day. And if you're going for more than an hour or two, then you're going to need to fuel specifically for that event before and during and after to keep the glycogen up, even if you're a fat burning machine, some carbs can be helpful because the glucose drops
So
during that.
I did have an erroneous period while I was here, while I was doing low carb
Mm,
and playing tennis.
mm.
Could not play. I'd get all starry eyed. I could hardly stand up. And I said, "This is one of the dumbest things you've ever done." And it took me a while to figure it out. And the one who was helpful was Don Lehman, who also happened to play
He's a
tennis.
tennis player,
And he
yeah.
said, low carb will not work. This short little 80, whatever he is, 80 something year old guy. So, and he goes, you need 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour.
Mm,
And the other part that helped me was he goes, once you're past or right around an hour and a half, up to an hour and a half, you'll probably be fine doing
mm,
whatever you're doing, which I have found to be, I thought he was
mm,
brilliant, spot on, right?
mm, mm.
And one of the things that's a little tricky for me personally, when I go to play tennis, you don't know how long it's going to be. Depends how many guys show up, how hot is it, bada, bada, bada. So it's tricky.
Yeah. And there was a question from the chat about uh eating, stopping eating with DDF, if I've just had a few bites. I suppose in DDF glucose signals, we talk about eat to satiety, but then we check our glucose after, and then if the glucose has risen too much by more than 30 milligrams per deciliter or 1.6 millimole, you go, maybe too many carbs. I haven't exercised recently, and you can tweak your meal based on that. But you should feel full. You shouldn't be starving or try to minimize how much you eat so you're hungry too quickly afterwards. Do you have any further comments on that?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah, just I think it was Laura was saying I'm having a hard time letting myself stop eating after just a few bites. I used to eat more vegetarian, so I often had to eat past full point or I'd be starving 2 hours later, and looking to eat again. I
So
have plenty of weight to lose, so how do I
so I
talk
don't
to myself?
understand. I'm missing the first part with the I don't understand why we're trying to stop eating after a few bites.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
And we would always be saying, get the protein, get the nutrients, and if your body
Right,
gets the protein, it will then be able to judge how much energy it needs with the rest of the meal. And then you can use your glucose as a guide for the following meals. And then if it takes 10 hours to come back down, you obviously ate too much, but you're probably not going to eat that much at one meal. So that iterative glucose
right.
feedback is really helpful.
I did have another thought that after prolonged cardio, like for me, it's tennis, and I'll come home and I'll have had something probably on the way home. But if I don't eat fairly soon after I
Yeah.
get home, and I'm not, I'm usually not hungry.
Mm,
But if I don't eat fairly soon, by the time I do go to eat, I'm going to eat the entire
ravenous.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
that's a really hot tip is after you exercise, eat sooner rather than later, especially as you start to get hungry, don't wait. Don't wait for your
right.
glucose to drop back down, and that's what we always teach people in glucose signals. A question from Linda about working out at night and fueling with carbs and the like. I only do lifting at night. I incorporate cardio into the day, usually with the help of 3 dogs. I'm wondering if he has any particular suggestions for modification to fueling around workouts. Do you have any guidance on fueling for
Well,
workouts at night? I suppose we tend to find people do better. Their glucose is drifting down during the day in glucose signals, so we say prioritize protein in the morning, save carbs for night, your evening, and this would be perfect around your evening workout.
and she said something about her son's school too. Well, first, congratulations on doing both. So
Mm,
I can tell she's both weightlifting and doing some cardio. Good for you. And so now we're kind of putting some parameters around it. The first one I would have is not the question she asked, but I would see if you can't do something to rearrange it so that you're not doing that weightlifting at night at 8 o'clock. So yeah, my suggestion on timing was that's too late. It's too late for both exercise and then you're going to want to eat afterwards. And now we're starting to get into the whole circadian rhythm and sleep.
yeah.
And so if it at all possible, and I saw a son mentioned, I'm not sure from the picture, but if you've got someone who can help you, a partner, see if you can't switch that. And I saw your son's school. See if you can't switch it to do something earlier in the morning and be coming back from your weight workout when your son's waking up. I
Hmm.
think you'll find that'll, um, yeah. So, but if you stay at 8 o'clock and you've done a weight workout, you're prioritizing weights and muscle over potentially some other health metrics. And
Like
that's
being able to
fine.
sleep well
If
at night.
yeah, it might see how it affects your sleep. And that's a conscious choice. If that's all you can get done, and I can certainly remember with 4 kids what those days looked like. It's yeah, great. Do what you and always do what is going to create less stress for you.
Yeah. If it works
If
at eight
it's
o'clock and
stressful
she
for
can
you trying to
sleep
move
well,
it to a
then
different time of day, don't do that.
yeah.
So,
Had another question from Nadine about how do you manage eating around travel. I'm in Bangladesh for 4 days and pretty much zero control over my food as we're attending events on the move with other people who make meal choices, no access to supermarkets, etc. It's complicated. I'm accepting that this is going to set me back for 4 days and trying to prioritize portion control and not stressing and enjoy the experience. I think that's generally fair enough. And if you can make the protein focus, choose the best foods available in your context. And then the great thing about glucose signals is that you can get back on track really quickly without punishing yourself. You're not going to go, I'm going to fast for 4 days because I had a blowout for 4 days. I'm going to just follow the process and get back
Well,
in
I
control.
think here we can use one. Well, first I had to go, I was pretty sure I knew where Bangladesh might be, but it's sitting right there. It's in Asia, right on the Tropic of whatever, the one that's northern, right? And I looked up and they had some pictures of Bangladesh food. And they were this Bangladeshi, I guess is how we do the adjective. It looked amazing. So I think if we add Marty's little caveat of eat like an adult and and enjoy the experience. Yes, enjoy the experience. You don't have to eat that entire bowl of curry rice they just shoved your way. Have a little bit of it. See how it tastes. Say that was great. I'll have some of that meat right over there, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And did you want to talk about Ren's High Society 12 list of foods?
I do. So when I thought Ren had a great question, Marty did a nice job pulling this up. But if people are really stuck and you can't figure out what to eat, here's a marvelous place to start. Find something on here you like. Let's do the protein. I see one, two, three, four, probably five different sources, six different sources of protein. Pick any one of those. It doesn't matter. Now, if you don't like any of those, we have to have a different chat. But start with any one of those, then add some greens. I see
Mm.
some spinach, some asparagus, some broccoli. That would be amazing. And then I see two different kinds of milk kinds of things. And I think I said something to Marty. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday about. I'm pretty sure that we could get Marty to run a perfect day report with just these 12 items,
Oh, yeah.
and it will do very well.
Yeah. And these are our high society foods that have protein and calcium and potassium and sodium and vitamin B2, and they're all packed in there so they satisfy our cravings with less energy. And if we go to the community, you can find them under food lists, and they're our do high satiety foods. So Ren's 12 foods that Bob calls them are at the top. They're the most popular ones, but then we've got lists of high satiety seafood. Interestingly, Mike was telling me this morning that he's been lifting for ages and was eating a ton of meat, but now he's craving seafood, maybe the selenium or something. But seafood is just incredibly nutritious. Not everybody loves it, but if you ran and live near the ocean, you can get lots of it. Lower fat, high protein meat is amazing. It's really hard to overdo high satiety veggies. They just fill you up without many calories. There's some great dairy options. The lower fat options are great if you're trying to get the protein and nutrients you need without excess energy. And fruit can be filling, especially around workouts. So that's all pretty cool.
Look
Um,
at that. It's not orange juice. Go back to that last one, please.
yeah,
In the top left hand corner is an
oranges.
amazing item. Amazing. Oranges, 63%. Pretty good for fruit.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. It's just it's fibrous. It's not orange juice, but it's because it's fibrous and low energy density and gives you a ton of nutrients as well. They're not the most amazing. They're not egg whites, but yeah, they fill you up and they're not necessarily bad. There's
I just
some
want to say
some good choices in lentils.
I
Ren,
just say I'm not opposed to you changing the title.
Ren, I can take my entire
Ren's
magnum
list,
opus of high satiety foods and just call
and
it
you'd be
Ren's
happy to know that
list.
those 12 foods are absolutely on my list every week. Thanks, Bob.
you're welcome, Ren.
And Mike says, I love eating citrus with different eat citrus tons and lots of grapefruit, which is, yeah, he's lifting and needs that fuel even as a type 1 diabetic can tolerate those because he's lifting a ton. What else we got, Barb? We got um, Thalassi, who's an amazing human who has inspired me a ton in I'll share the screen in the group. It says, how you're maintaining a cheerful attitude always. Would you please tell? Thank you, Bob. So you're always happy-go-lucky, Bob. How is that? You rarely have a grumpy day. You always turn up and harass me and make everything fun. What's your secret?
Um, Mood is a choice.
Hmm.
So every day, well, particularly at my age at 74, life's getting too short, right? It's not going to go on forever from here. So why get up and be in a bad mood? No, thank you. No, thanks.
Yep.
And I know we had somebody in the group, he or she may be here. I thought it was borderline hysterical when she said she didn't need more cheers. She just needed to know how to find stuff. Said, okay, okay, all right. So well, when I was working in Ajax, Ontario, Company Fest on Canada many years ago, we had a saying at the executive level: whenever we're looking to hire someone, we're looking for two things: attitude and energy. Assuming we're not looking for degreed people. So we can teach them the rest.
Yeah.
Whatever the tasks are that need to be done, we can teach them that, but we can't teach them attitude
Attitude.
or energy.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good motto. Anybody else got any live questions before we start to wrap up? This has been really cool, Bob.
Thank you, Marty.
Anybody want to
Been
jump in
fun.
and ask anything live? Amanda's got a question. Waving the hand.
Tom asked a question earlier about protein, which I
Oh
shared.
yeah.
And
I
well,
think it was, do you like protein shakes or whole food protein sources after your workouts, Bob?
So
yeah,
yes, yes. So the one that's quickest, like if I've gone to the gym and we've done a weight workout, particularly if I've gone with my wife, we treat ourselves afterwards to one of these, and it's completely full of stuff, but it's a muscle milk and it's got 40 grams of protein and like 150 calories. So we'll have one of those. Now, is that ideal? Is that optimal? No, no, it's not. But is that going to get me some protein pretty quickly? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Then when I come home, I'll have regular, protein stuff, whatever I've got sitting around for. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, basically my rule of thumb is if it's around a workout, you're doing a lot of activity and you need to get more protein in, then the shakes and the powders can be useful. But if you're not as active and need to get more protein per calorie with higher satiety and higher nutrient density, then whole food protein sources are definitely better. So yeah, it's a supplement and you don't just want to rely on only the shakes because they're not as satiating or nutrient dense. So yeah, but if you're working out, need a ton more protein in grams, then go for it. Anything else before we wrap, Amanda? Look like you're going to ask something. You got a
yeah.
million good
My
questions.
question was just, I think there's so much misinformation about protein and about how you can eat too much protein.
Ah,
Um, if your target is, say, I don't know, random 100 grams a day or something, and
yep.
you eat 150, is that going to cause problems? Or I can understand that there's problems with eating less and not reaching your
Yeah,
targets, but if you're
Belinda's shaking her
exceeding
head.
your targets,
Yeah,
okay,
the
that's
the short answer is no, especially if you're not overdoing your energy. So what we
gotcha.
focus
Yeah,
on is protein percentage. So if you're under your energy target, it's really hard to eat
just
too
keep
much
eating
protein.
protein.
And if you're eating higher protein percentage foods, I can go to our section in the community where we've got all those food lists. So if we get into protein rich foods, try to eat too much egg white or chicken breast or shrimp or low fat sirloin steak, or you just get really full. And there's a hard limit on how much of those foods you can eat. It just kicks out. And yeah, I mean, if you're lifting, if you can't eat much protein, talk to Mike. He's eating 400 or now 300, but he was eating 415 grams of protein a day because he's lifting. If you're not craving protein, it's probably a sign that you're not active. Your muscles aren't doing anything. You're not damaging your muscles enough for them to need protein to recover. So if you don't want more protein, then you got to ask yourself, am I actually moving? Am I becoming that resilient 90-year-old that will age gracefully and not fall over and break a hip?
So I
Ren?
saw Kathy, I saw Lori said thank you. Kathy B said thank you. I see Ren's got her hand up.
Ren? Do Ren?
um, First of all, I want to say, yeah, just go ahead and try to eat 6 cans of sardines and tell me. But my real question, and maybe this is not good for the end of the thing here, but I have read in the past, and I have not heard you talk about this at all, I don't think. But
Hmm.
I want to talk about the digestibility, just briefly, digestibility of different proteins. Because I know, Bob, you were talking about gut health and all that good stuff. And from what I've read, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe it's changed. I don't know. Things certainly do change, but seafood, chicken, certainly egg whites digest quicker than like red meats and stuff like that. I'm just curious about your thoughts on digestibility of different proteins.
I'll just quickly jump in there. I th To my knowledge, there's sort of two issues. One is bioavailability, and the plant-based proteins are bound with fiber, so they're harder to actually extract the aminos from. In terms of digestibility, your protein powders and maybe dairy is going to be faster digesting and hit the system more quickly, which is good if you're a bodybuilder, but not ideal for satiety. So, yeah. Bob, do you want to jump in on more on that?
No, I think you've done fine.
Yep.
Much protein gets digested in the stomach. Typically, hydrochloric acid is credited with helping a lot of that. And I do have one that I meant to lead off with before I finished. There was, I have a strong belief that the human body is a self-monitoring, self-correcting, and self-healing organism to the extent that it's physiologically possible.
Hmm.
Like if we whack off a finger, we're not a gerbil. It's not going to replace our finger. But if we cut ourselves, there's nothing we have to do. Wash, rinse it off. It's going to heal just fine.
As long as you get all
So
the right ingredients to heal,
yeah, as long
that's
as
the key
it's
thing.
given correct, given the nutrients that it needs, and certainly Marty and the whole optimizing nutrition emphasizes that wonderfully,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
if we're, and that's the dietary quality score, kind of 80 is my cutoff. If I'm not up in the 80s, I'm kind of really slacking off. But I'm pretty sure if I am up in the 80s, the body's getting what it needs
Hmm.
to do what it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and whether you're carnivore or plant-based or fruitarian or whatever, it's the nutrients you get with your food. And if you're prioritizing that, Belinda made a comment about digestibility, and some people start out from a very low protein diet and they struggle to digest protein and they have some digestive issues. But you ramp up your hydrochloric acid in the stomach with enough zinc and other nutrients, you're able to produce more hydrochloric acid to deal with the extra protein. And she also mentioned that grains can inhibit a lot of digestive issues and cause a lot of people issues. So, final question, Bob. If from Amanda's got the second final question. Go.
So Bob just talks about a diet in the 80s. I don't know what this means.
oh, a diet in the 80s. So,
That was the
You were
diet
saying when your
quality.
diet is in the
Oh
80s or
yeah,
the
oh, sorry.
with a diet quality score in our micros masterclass. So if our diet quality score, and we do that with the Your Perfect Day report. So basically, if you
Yeah,
get in,
perfect day now in macros, and it's a way. It's based on 2,000 calories a day. It takes what you're eating, compares it to what would this look like if you ate 2,000
hmm,
calories, and it gives you a score.
yeah,
And so I think it is called dietary quality score, right?
yeah, diet quality score. I'm in the middle of doing
Yeah.
a whole bunch of them for macros at the moment, and it's really cool to see people using that report to continue to upgrade their diet quality and satiety, and everybody's on that journey. Final question, Bob, from Belinda from the chat is what would you tell yourself, your younger 30-year-old self, based on what you know now? If you go back in time and say, Bob, you need to do this in life or nutrition or both.
So that's a very interesting question and timing in my personal life, because right then I would have had just had third, my second child, and was pushing my career really hard. And I had a goal in my career at the time that I wanted to be a plant manager. Now, why? I really couldn't tell you, but that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that the company had this system they used that if they had a significant opening, they would send a note to zillions of people throughout the company saying, "You got anybody you think might be good at this?" So I'd been with the company for 9 years at the time, I guess. Yeah, 8 or 9 years. I called or sent an email or called everybody I knew that I thought would get one of these lists. And I said, "Hey, I'm not asking you to vote for me, but if you could just put me on the list, I'd really appreciate it." So, a while later, the hiring manager calls me, who I had known from years before. And he said, "Hey, we got this opening down here for blah, blah." I said, "Yeah, I know." And he goes, "So are you interested?" I said, "Oh, did I make the list?" He said, "Bob, I don't know what you've been doing. Not only did you make every list, you've been on the top of most of them. I guess I got to talk to you." So, what I would tell myself is that goal that you're chasing isn't that important. Isn't that important? Right. So, was it fun? Did I enjoy it? Yeah. But massive, massive stress. Right.
Yeah,
So that's what I would tell myself. The goal that you're chasing right now isn't that important.
that's really wise. Wise for all of us. We all get stressed over the minutiae and the one thing we're trying to achieve now that we're bumping up against and feel like we're failing. But in the big picture, being happy and healthy and be able to play pickleball and tennis and have a family that loves you, number one priority.
Oh, it's been very exciting. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Bob. You rock. Thank you again for all your contribution to the community and
Welcome. Thanks, everybody.
all your wisdom. Thanks everyone for joining in. Catch ya. Bye.